Welcome back, you absolute Rizzlers. Today we're going to be covering JToH Intense Towers because I haven't really made a ranking in quite a while. And also, you need to subscribe because you just kind of should. There's no real question about that. Alright, let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Number 64 is Tower of Ultimately Terrifying. Do I even need to explain why this is just royally shit? I mean, there are unnecessary traps sprinkled everywhere, and completely weird and useless gameplay scattered around the entire thing. Like, sometimes it genuinely feels like a sequel to Tower of Traps sometimes, and that's not a good thing whatsoever. Also, what's with the random darkness on the first floor? Number 63 is Tower of Extraordinary Adventures. Now, you probably are wondering why this is so low on the list. And, well, the reason is because the tower's just incredibly hard to sight read. I mean, you wouldn't expect that for a classic tower either, so yeah. And also, there's buttons on each floor that aren't very easy to find, and if you don't collect them, you can't beat the tower. Floor 7 to 8 are also huge difficulty spikes as well, so yeah, it's a pretty crappy tower if I must say so myself. Number 62 is Tower of Dispersed Rooms. Can someone genuinely look me in the eye, like genuinely, and say that they like this tower? Like, I'm genuinely serious, does anyone actually like this? This tower is kind of lengthy, first of all, and the gameplay is so painful, it's like watching the emoji movie 5 times over, which I have done, by the way. The beat blocks at the start are also always painful to maneuver too. Number 61 is Citadel of Weird Nostalgia. Don't get me wrong, I've spent countless hours on this thing, but my god, it is the laziest thing ever created. The edits to the floors are mostly unnecessary and just make the floors more annoying than usual. I mean, if we're taking floors from Rings 2 and 3, then the gameplay is already going to be painful to play anyway. Also, there's no spoiler alert to this tower. I mean, not everyone's been to Ring 2 or 3, have they? Number 60 is Tower of a Depressing Future. Man, we really cannot seem to get things right in Ring 6, can we? I mean, first off, this tower's pretty bland for the most part, but it's one of the first towers in the game where it's kind of impossible to go in blind due to all of the random puzzles and very strange choices of gameplay. Most times I'm just kind of confused what the fuck I'm even supposed to do. I mean, and floor 1 leaves a bad impression as after that the tower has a decently acceptable length. Yeah, it's just not great, if I'm being honest. Number 59 is Tower of Infuriating Obstacles. I mean, I can see why it was originally meant for Ring 3, but from someone else's perspective, this tower wouldn't look that bad, but trust me, the gameplay is incredibly painful to play through, and a lot of its mechanics just come across as weird and over the top. I mean, I know Zone 3 isn't great when it comes to intenses, but this one just kind of takes the piss, to be honest. But one thing I do like is the Geometry Dash music is a pretty nice addition. Number 58 is Tower of Oblivion. Yeah, look, I know this one might make a lot of people mad, but to be honest, I just don't fancy playing a tower for like 2 hours. Also, this does seem like almost impossible without a guide, so if you guys know me, that basically guarantees a tower is an automatic no-no, I'm sorry. Although, I will admit, this must have taken ages to make, so you kinda have to congratulate Duke for that. This one's just not for me. Number 57 is Steeple of Dusty Dunes. There's many reasons why this one is bad, and if I'm being honest, it really didn't need the revamp at all. Now the steeple is just so confusing to the point of I don't even know where to go when I spawn in. I don't think this is an enjoyable revamp whatsoever, and it should have just stayed the same as it was, because it was actually kind of fun before they had to go and change it. Shame. Unnecessary. Number 56 is Tower of Whisking It All. I remember this one immediately being like the black sheep of Ashen Tower works when it released, and to be honest I can see why. A lot of the floors are very long and there's not enough good gameplay to really keep it that entertaining throughout, so the tower kind of becomes a chore. The gameplay is also very trial and error too, like you'll often fall in this thing. Although on the bright side there is button progression, which isn't really that much to brag about, but it's something I suppose. Number 55 is Tower of Insanely Innovative Ideas. Kinda like Whisking It All, the tower's very lengthy and there's not enough good gameplay to keep it interesting. This is also a peak intense, so a lot of the jumps are very annoying to pull off, and the conveyor at the bottom of the tower is really annoying too. Although this one does show some glimpses of good gameplay, but these are very few and far between. There's not that much to like about this tower, to be honest, much like a lot of Ring 8. Number 54 is Tower of Witchcraft and Wizardry. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there actually is that much magic going on in this tower. Although there is weird and strange gameplay, I'll give it that. A lot of the jumps in this tower are really annoying and difficult to get through, and the theming of this tower is also a little bizarre. Most times I'm in Lost River, I see people complain about this one, and yeah, if I'm being honest, I do kind of get it. Weird tower. I'd skip it if I was in Lost River, to be fair. Number 53 is Tower of Mechanically Induced Mayhem. This one can be fun at some points, but most of the time the mechanics and challenges are really boring, or just confusing to get around. By the way, this tower is very unsight readable, if we're talking about things being confusing, so it's not very fun in that retrospect. Also, the colours of this tower are definitely quite ugly if I'm being honest with you. Number 52 is Tower of Arcanium's Entering. First off, I have no clue whatsoever what those two words are supposed to mean, and the tower's very bad as well. I mean, the idea is creative and all, and the Rising Poison does actually feel like a Mario level sometimes, but this tower is just not good enough for me to even remember anything about it after playing it. The two towers that missed out on Arcane Area getting confirmed for Zone 2 was quite a bizarre decision, to be honest, as they really don't fit the environment. Number 51 is Tower of Floor of Fury. This tower is quite respected by the community, but if we're being honest, the gameplay is bad, right? It's full of random head hitters, the outside is incredibly punishing, and a lot of the jumps in this tower are really fast spaced out as well, for no reason too. That being said, this one is kind of fun to grind for some reason, and the nature aspect is quite appealing to the eye as well, so I can't shit on this tower for everything. Number 50 is Tower of Uneasy Scaling. Yeah, much like Triple I, this tower is also pretty uninteresting throughout and kinda lengthy if I'm being honest. Although this tower does have a more vibrant approach to it, which does make me respect it a little bit more due to its funky vibe and general lively atmosphere. The gameplay is slightly annoying though, so yeah, it really isn't that great, but it has a few qualities that make it just a little bit better than pure trash. Number 49 is Tower of Extraterrestrial Enchantment. This one is slightly better because it has a more immersive theme than its other Arcane Area wannabe, but the gameplay overall is still pretty bland in this one. Although the theme of the tower definitely makes up for the bad gameplay in some aspects. almost so that it could be considered average, but sadly, it won't quite get that kind of recognition just yet. Number 48 is Tower of Flustering Sections. This is perhaps the most forgettable tower ever. I mean, it's fine, it's not like it's terrible or anything, it just has nothing that noticeable going on. The gameplay is just really bland in that retrospect. The only reason it exists at all is to replace another tower that had to get removed because of, well, you must know the reason at this point. If you don't, I don't think I'm really the person to cover that for you, so, yeah. Number 47 is Tower of Shifting Slopes. If I'm being honest, this tower definitely does have some potential in it. It just, for me, it doesn't really execute its ideas that well, which is a shame because this could have been a great tower. That said, there is some sense of enjoyability in this one, and I do respect people that think that this is a good tower, but for me it just falls a little short, sadly. Number 46 is Tower of Intense Solar Chaos. I beat this one pretty recently, and if it wasn't for a few wacky jumps, this could have been a great tower. The theming is decent, and the tower is paced well, but why in the name of JToH is there an insta-kill? What the hell? Also, the final floor definitely has some of the most annoying jumps known to humankind. It's a shame, as a lot of Gamma's towers are really good and they do have great potential. Number 45 is Tower of Swift and Precise Sections. This tower looks cool, don't get me wrong. I do think it is a pretty creative tower sometimes, but a lot of the gameplay is hard to sight read, and a lot of the mechanics and the client objects they introduce are sometimes a little too wacky or take multiple tries to get right. I personally think this one's not that bad, it could just use a few tweaks if I'm being honest. Number 44 is Tower of Icy Adventures. See, we did eventually stumble across the tower that actually did get into Arcane area. Anyway, this tower is alright, and the ice theme does work okay sometimes. But my main problem is the lighting of the premise of this tower. And also, why does Brian take up like half of the screen every time he speaks? Like, I mean, I know you don't need him to progress, but this must be annoying for the people that really wanted to feel immersed in this and talk to the NPCs. Number 43 is Tower of Impossible Expectations. The good old classics. This is the Intense that started it all, and it's better than 21 that ended up coming after it. You may be thinking that this is lower down the list than it perhaps should be, but if you think about it, this tower is pretty average and does have some annoying jumps too, and let's not forget that it uses E-Dance too to kind of give across gameplay, if you will. But that said, this is great fun to try and speedrun, and there's cool little memes and gimmicks throughout. Number 42 is Steeple of Huge Pain. Yeah, while this one is sort of enjoyable, I'm not going to deny there is a serious issue of random difficulty spikes throughout. The gameplay in the last two floors is ridiculously hard for an Intense. I get that it's netted, but come on. Although, for a steeple that is mostly purist, I will say that the gameplay that they did create does actually get pretty creative for something that's supposed to be, like, incredibly classic. Number 41 is Tower of Holy Flip. Now, this tower is pretty short for what it is, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad tower. I mean, yeah, some of the gameplay is questionable and very old-fashioned, like the head hitters and killbrick spam, but this tower has a sense of enjoyability to it, which is actually present throughout. Besides the first 3 floors, which are just a little boring, but that is probably because I kept on falling to them. You guys can see when I actually beat this tower. I think I streamed it, I'm not actually sure to be honest. Number 40 is Steeple of Magical Collaboration. For something that took like 10 people to make, this is pretty underwhelming. I mean, that said, the theming is okay, and I understand this was almost supposed to be almost like the last boss battle of Arcane Area, if you will, but the final stretch is unnecessarily nerve-wracking. Like, the jumps that randomly tilt with no indication, and when you have to try and fit back inside the tower, it's just not great. I mean, it's fun, but the environment could be more immersive. Number 39 is Tower of Cruel and Unusual Punishment. This tower is all over the place when it comes to gameplay. I mean, some of the mechanics used are creative, yet some of them are incredibly annoying to get past. Also, this one is very punishing. I get that that's in the name, but sometimes intense creators do get a little bit carried away and create something that's just a little bit too much. I mean, that said, it is an alright tower though, I have to admit. Number 38 is Citadel of Uneasiness. I mean, yeah, this one's okay. It's like the definition of average, to be honest. I feel like sometimes the Citadel utilises some quite obnoxious gameplay styles, but that's only sometimes, which is fine, but it does almost take the piss a little bit. That said, there's really nothing that wrong with the Citadel, it just has a few flaws that hold it back from being great. Otherwise, this is a great ending to Ring 4. Number 37 is Tower of Never Giving Up, Ever. This one is pretty average stuff you'd expect for a Ring 7 tower. A lot of people do actually hate on this one quite a bit, and while the gameplay does have a few traps and quite a few weird things actually, the tower's just still fairly solid for what it is. It's just a little long for something that didn't really need to be that long at all, but yeah, there's not that much to complain about with this tower, it's just a little bit strange. Number 36 is Tower of Shadowy Radiance. This tower looks and is pretty cool. I like the styles of gameplay. I think this does fit Ashen Tower Works quite a bit, to be honest. My only nitpick is that it is quite hard to sight read, but that is kind of expectation out of the more modern towers at this point. Yeah, it's a pretty decent tower, there's really not that much to say about this one. Number 35 is Tower of Manic Lows. Much like the tower before, I think this one does put in a lot of effort, yet it's just a little bit difficult to sight read. However, I do prefer this one a little bit more due to its more immersive theme and impression that it gives off. However, much like Tower of Shadowy Radiance, this one can get quite annoying at times if you're not sure what to do. Number 34 is Tower of Tokyo Heights. I do believe that this one is slightly overrated for what it is. Although some jumps are ridiculous, like the beat block section and the final trust flick jumps are also painful for an intense tower. It's fun, but it's just a little bit much. However, I do absolutely adore the theme to this one. It almost seems like a hotel in many ways. It was quite ahead of its time, to be fair, and you have to respect that this came out in like early 2019. Number 33 is Tower of Compact Volumes. In case you didn't know, this tower originally comes from JToH. In many ways, that does show the tower typically has better structured gameplay than most of the other towers, although I must admit that it definitely could have done more for its overall design, because some parts almost look like a cave, and there's definitely some ways that they could have utilised that better, because there aren't that many towers that really use the cave setting, and this was in Ring 4 of JToH, which was themed like a cave. Number 32 is Citadel of Constant Heart-Stopping. While the Citadel's okay, I'm not a great fan of the design that much. I think that could definitely have been done a little better. While I like some of the gameplay, like the snake block aspect, it's sometimes a little bit overused, but I like it in this Citadel. Also, this tower has a very funny acronym. COX, yeah, nice one, mate. Citadel's fine at the end of the day. There's not really that much else to say, if I'm being honest with you. Number 31 is Tower of Never-Ending Fun. While this tower is on the more forgettable side of Zone 8, it definitely has some star qualities. The theme of a ball pit is somehow a really fun and unique theme, and it definitely does give you a lot of freedom for the gameplay, that is for sure, which does show in this tower. While some parts are annoying, I can't deny that this tower is actually a pretty decent experience, and if you're in Zone 8 you should definitely try it, even if you're not really into doing intenses. Number 30 is Tower of Yore. While the gameplay can definitely be a little frustrating, this tower has an almost magical theme to it, which I very much enjoy. There's plenty of wacky stuff in it too, but not to the point where it's so bad that it's unsight readable. This tower definitely has a unique and crazy feel to it, which I do quite like. I also like the lighting in this tower. There's something about it, just like the foggy almost theme to it, that just seems to work well. Yeah, pretty decent tower. Number 29 is Tower of Quirky Contraptions. If you guys remember my stream on this, then yeah, I struggled with Floor 7. In my defense, the gameplay was a little bit stupid, but the rest of the tower is actually pretty solid, and the gameplay sort of reminds me of Citadel of Green stuff, which I do actually quite love, so yeah, this tower is alright for me. It's not one that's appreciated by that much of the community, but it definitely should get some kind of support. It's a pretty decent tower. Number 28 is Tower of Triangular Terror, the official hardest tower on this list. While that's debatable, the tower itself is actually good fun. For its theme, the gameplay tends to be pretty uniquely challenging and interesting to say the least. One gripe that I do have is that the triangular gameplay can sometimes lead to you getting flung if you're not careful, but otherwise this is a pretty great tower that I'm going to try and grind someday. Number 27 is Tower of 1-9. The horizontal gameplay does create some tension, and while the tower is a bit unsight readable, you have to admire the creativity that goes into this one. It really does fit the theme of Zone 8 in many aspects, and is probably the best intense tower in that area, in my opinion at least. But yeah, it's a little unsight readable, and you're going to have to take that into account if you want to grind this one, but otherwise it's a very decent tower. Number 26 is Tower of Table Flipping. You may be wondering why this is actually so high on the list, and I do think the answer will have to be personal bias on this one, but you have to admit, this tower has a certain charm to it that a lot of the other classic towers don't have. There's early glimpses of creativity and great gameplay here, and the tower's also pretty fun to speedrun too, so it is quite likeable for me. Number 25 is Tower of Watts. There is a lot going on in this tower, and I really do admire the creative theme that they chose for it. A lot of the gameplay you can see is suspended from either a lightning bolt or some kind of zap, and I just think that this tower is pretty cool if I'm being honest. It's not that hard either, which makes it a pretty chill experience if you're looking for one in Zone 6. I definitely do recommend checking this tower out, even though some of the gameplay can be slightly annoying, but otherwise definitely very solid tower. Number 24 is Steeple of Underlying Breezes. While this is in Paradise Atoll, so you would expect me to hate it, it's actually much better than its brother Steeple of Dusty Dunes. This steeple really does encapsulate the essence of summer, which is obviously the theme for Paradise Atoll as a whole. Also, the fact that it's hanging high in the air also gives off an ominous feel, which I do appreciate. This is a very fun steeple, if I'm being honest, and it's definitely overlooked quite a lot. Number 23 is Steeple of Involuntary Isolation. Is it just me, or does the theme of a construction site fit JToH massively? I mean, the amount of times this theme appears in the lobbies, it genuinely surprises me that we haven't got a tower like this before Involuntary Isolation. Oh well, the gameplay and vibe is very good, and the steeple is all round solid, so there's really not that much bad to say about this one. It actually sort of fits Silent Abyss, even though you wouldn't really expect it to. Number 22 is Tower of Horrifying Experiences. If I'm being honest, I was on edge the entire time thinking that I was gonna get jump scared. This tower has a very unsettling theme, which I do really enjoy, and it definitely really immerses you in the vibe, and well, as for the gameplay, it's good enough, so I'd say this is a pretty solid tower in my book. I don't know about you. Number 21 is Tower of Anticlimactic Outcomes. Quite literally a neighbour of Horrifying Experiences, this tower is quite rightly unique in itself. The gameplay reminds me a little bit of Sovereign Travelling, which I actually came to like, and this tower is pretty vibrant and energetic in the vibe that it gives off. It's a little annoying sometimes, but if you appreciate everything else, then the annoying parts of the tower probably won't matter to you, to be honest. It's a pretty solid tower. Number 20 is Tower of Whirl of Winds. This, much like Involuntary Isolation, is a very cool and creative concept that I'm surprised hasn't been done before, to be honest. I really do like the sort of farming vibe that this tower gives, and the gameplay is structured very well too, which is why it just makes the top 20. And now that I'm saying this, it kind of looks like a jungle as well as a farm. It's a pretty cool design, actually. Number 19 is Tower of Increasing Stress. This is just another classic tower that I absolutely love. This one is just a pretty cool and unique challenge in my opinion. The gameplay is solid and creates a lot of nerve-wracking outside sections as well. I actually beat this on stream if you guys watched that, and yeah, the name definitely doesn't lie. That was a pretty stressful experience, but it's a very solid tower and I definitely recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. Number 18 is Tower of Great Overcomings. As Ring 9's only intense, this one does not disappoint. I love the atmosphere and vibe to this one. It almost feels like an old, ruined Western civilization, which, to be fair, actually is a very nice theme. And the colour scheme really fits well with Ring 9. So, congratulations, Togo, for being a great way to kick off Ring 9. And also, you're the only tower that has an acronym that is the same name as a country, so yeah, very cool. Number 17 is Tower of Guided Trials. This is a very solid tower, and I really do enjoy the wide variety of themes that this tower actually portrays. Our guide is also very cool and isn't annoying in the slightest, unlike some other people in the JToH universe. Looking at you, Brian. And that is pretty pleasant because the tower's incredibly long, so you want to have at least some kind of what do you call it, entertainment to keep you going throughout. A very nice tower, if I do say so myself. Number 16 is Tower of Hazardous Laddering. I have beaten this one on mobile, and while it was a long time ago, it is still fresh in my head. This is a very solid tower with fun and actually kinda sight readable gameplay, to be honest. While some of it is a little bit trial and error, there's no denying that this is a pretty amazing experience for an intense tower. And don't ever confuse it with Hefty Magnitude, trust me. It can show sometimes, and it's a bit embarrassing. Number 15 is Tower of Dangerous Expeditions. This tower kind of reminds me of Questionable Trials sometimes, which is both good and bad, but for this one, this is kind of good. There's an incredible variety of gameplay, and this one is still fun, even to those at SC level, which is not me yet. So, what's not to love here? I mean, this is a huge skill boost too, especially for someone that has just recently beaten Toye. Number 14 is Tower of Shallow Waters. There's something just so calming about this tower, even though it isn't intense, that does make you feel things. Some of the gameplay can be kind of meh sometimes, but that can definitely be made up by the fact that this tower is absolutely amazing at its theming. I mean, just look at this, there's something just so calming about it. I know I've said that already, but geez, this tower actually looks amazing. Number 13 is Citadel of Heights and Depths. I wasn't sure about the Citadel at the start, but now I have come to really appreciate it. There's all sorts of things, from tower crossings to visiting a house to basement explorations. After the end, you really do feel like you've come out of a feature film, and honestly, I am all for that, to be fair. The length is a little insane, but other than that, this is a very good Citadel that I'm very happy to have got the experience to play. Number 12 is Citadel of Corporate Enterprise. The Citadel is just so goofy, and I absolutely love that. There's a lot of memes scattered throughout, and I love the humorous side to it too. I mean, that said, the gameplay is also amazing. It's very fun, and the Citadel doesn't drag on for any longer than it really needs to, which is part of the problem with a few of the other Citadels on this list. It's a very good Citadel, and it definitely fits Zone 5 pretty well, in my opinion. Number 11 is Tower of Largely Limited Luminance. I've heard this tower gets some hate, and I honestly don't know why. This tower is very unique and is also quite sight readable as well. It's honestly one of the best dark towers out there, to be honest, because you must remember that deep darkness exists. My goodness, I really just hate that tower so much. But anyways, this one's very solid. It's got some pretty decent gameplay styles, and yeah, let's move on to the top 10. Number 10 is Citadel of Twists and Weirdness. This is one of the most fun and unique experiences I've ever played. I can't believe it introduces a cosmic clone, as that was one of my favourite concepts. It also references Mega Fun Obby, which is, well, essentially what I grew up with, because I used to be incredibly terrible at obbies, so yeah. And I just think in general this is a very goofy and cool Citadel. It's got fun gameplay, and even though the design's a little bit quirky, it definitely fits in. Number 9 is Citadel of Green Stuff. If you guys were present when I beat this on stream, you would know that this was a very stressful, yet incredibly fun experience. The pipe system is so cool and allows Citadel to introduce cool new themes. There's a wide variety of different gameplay styles, and it definitely helps you with trust flicks. It definitely boosted my skill on them, at least. And there's loads of gameplay styles going on here that blend together perfectly with what the Citadel's actually trying to achieve, which is to be basically a summary of Zone 2, which I really like. Number 8 is Steeple of Wicked Grotto. I know on stream I nitpicked this one a lot, but looking back, this is one of the coolest steeples ever made in my opinion. The cave theme is phenomenal, and it really sells the idea of one of Minecraft's lush caves. It has a certain beauty to it which is able to make up for the gameplay's occasional on-site readability, which again is only occasional, and the steeple is actually incredibly cool. Number 7 is Tower of Cone Mesh Climbing. I remember beating this for the first time on mobile, and, well, it was an amazing experience if I do say so myself. I mean, this is one of those towers that literally contains pretty much everything. Like, there's even a kart ride, for instance. There are also quite a lot of goofy characters throughout that make this one pretty interesting too, so overall I'd say it's a pretty brilliant tower, to be honest. Number 6 is Steeple of Buoyant Automations. Let me start by saying that this feels like a factory in some ways, which is very interesting to say the least. It's also a huge skill boost for beginners who are just getting into Intenses too. This is the only fully futuristic design steeple in Garden of Ijol. I know that Foreign Domains was going to get into Garden of Ijol, but they moved it to Zone 6, because that was also futuristic too, but anyways, I honestly feel more towers should have utilised this kind of style, because it really works in this steeple. Number 5 is Citadel of Laptop Splitting, the good old classic. This embodies everything a Ring 1 tower should be. It is one of the best summaries of any ring ever, and I really feel like the Citadel is truly timeless. We could still be ranking it this high in maybe 10 years or so. It's one of Duke's best works, and I honestly think that you should do this after you beat Toy. It's definitely one of my recommended for beginners. Number 4 is Tower of Hywana Cays. This is one of the most entertaining towers in the game in my opinion. The view and atmosphere of the tower are phenomenal. It feels like you're ascending over a traditional Japanese city. It's one of the most beautiful towers ever created, and in my opinion this tower is just honestly too overlooked by people. I mean, how can you not love this one? It's a great skill boost as well. It definitely takes a lot of your skill to be able to do this, which is why I also like it. Number 3 is Tower of Orientating Oscillating Opinions. This tower's whole theme is dizziness, and let's be honest, it does it so much better than Toned ever could. I mean, the tower is actually fun, for one example, and the gameplay flows incredibly well. Like, just look at how nicely this works. I can't believe a tower so old would still be able to hold up so well to this day. So let's be honest, great work to Cronku on this one. I have to say, I would not be able to make this in, well, in my whole life maybe. Number 2 is Tower of Perilous Antipode. This is honestly one away from being the greatest intense. This tower is the best themed that I've ever seen a tower, and the gameplay is nice and sight readable for once. It is one of my all-time favourites, and every so often I return to Garden of Ejov just to play this. I mean, it truly is a phenomenal experience. I'm very, very pleased that this tower is in Garden of Ejov. I mean, no one had any doubts in the first place that it wouldn't, but, you know, still, it's an amazing tower. And the number 1 best intense JToH tower is, well, it's Tower of Tenebrous Depths. Let's be honest, this is the greatest creation to have existed or ever be created in JToH. This is honestly up there with the most realistic and beautiful Roblox creations ever. This tower has literally everything, but most of all it has a goddamn boss fight, like, holy shit. The ending to this tower feels bittersweet, and honestly, if this didn't get in, that would be a crime against humanity. Well, thank you all for watching this video. It really does mean the world to me. Please subscribe, because this took hours for me to make. I do hope you're excited for Remorseless, because that is going to be coming, like, pretty soon. Probably not now, because I need to give this series a little rest, and myself a big rest, obviously. I'll see you guys soon. Remember, music's not owned by me, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. I really do. It was kind of good fun making it, to be fair. It did get very, very, very long though. But yeah, see ya.